What's up, everyone? George and Max here. We are on night 6 of our rewatch of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Today we've got the big one. It's the biggest movie so far. We're talking the Avengers. Go ahead, George. Kick us off.
Oh man, the first time seeing all of these heroes appear on screen together, whether it's on the helicarrier or just seeing characters that haven't interacted together, one-on-one, it's so cool. And then when you get to the Battle of New York and you see that group shot in the street, it's so cool. This movie, there's a little sneak peek of our ratings and rankings later, but this is my favorite film that we've done so far in the MCU.
Ooh.
Yeah, the only thing other than no, not even other than the only thing that really bothers me about this film is some of the characterizations of the characters, which we'll get into in a minute. But the story, the villain, the development of the MCU, top flight movie.
Absolutely. Like you said, some of the shots in this movie are so cool.
So cool.
So cool. Whether that's, like you said, the one in the street is like the iconic one. Pans around, they're all in a circle. Chills. I literally just got chills. It's also just a really well-paced film in terms of just how it's constructed. I think, obviously, yes, there are some slow bits, but I'm willing to suspend that because it's the first time we've seen more than, I don't know, 2 sort of major to major-ish characters get balanced. And I think it's really well done for the most part. We spend appropriate amounts of time for the most part. And I think, you get introduced to a new Bruce Banner, and that scene is long as it should be, right? He's in Mumbai, India.
Yeah.
And when you're first introduced to him, and you get to see where his headspace is at, which is so important for that kind of a character. And I know I appreciated that.
Yeah, let's talk about Ruffalo for a minute, because this is his first turn. I like his banner. I've liked it since day one. Ed Norton did a fine job with the banner element of it. His Hulk. We talked about his Hulk enough the other day. But I like Banner. I like the way that he plays off of Tony. I think that's the key relationship for him in this film. Obviously, it will come to be Natasha later in the film, and then in Age of Ultron especially. But we're not talking about that movie. He has this unenviable job of stepping into this character for an Avengers film where Tony, Steve, Clint, Thor, Natasha, weird order that I just said, but I'm going with it. They've all been in these characters for at least one film before.
Yep.
So he steps in almost seamlessly and plays a really, really strong version of this character, both Banner and Hulk.
Yeah, he has sort of this very quiet and reserved Banner. You definitely get the nerd. You definitely get the, 7 PhDs that he mentions in Ragnarok. But he's really fantastic as the Hulk. He plays well off of all of them. But his relationship with Tony is the one that continues, and I think even his relationship with Natasha, that one fluctuates. His relationship with Tony is their minds together.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's interesting as well for us to see, not a physical connection between characters, which is essentially what we've gotten up until this point with all relationships in the MCU, but it's a relationship of the mind, of the brain. And, you know, if that's not perfect for what Loki does in this film, I don't know what is. Using the mind and the brain to connect people, it's brilliant.
Yeah. And I mean the rest of the cast here. What I said about the characterizations, it was going to take time to see how these characters play off each other. Joss Whedon couldn't do it all in one movie. And I think that's what's so great about the MCU as it developed through phases 2 and 3, is that the relationships between these characters developed. You know, you had seen Clint and Thor loosely in that first Thor film. You obviously saw Tony and Natasha in Iron Man 2. So some of the relationships were there, but the way that you got to navigate Tony and Steve meeting for the first time, or Tony and Steve meeting Thor for the first time, all of them interacting with Nick Fury, who some of them haven't done to this point, and then the element of Loki, and 5 very earthly heroes going up against space magic, Mind Stone, scepter wielding, army controlling, portal opening Loki. And again, it's a great story. It's a great first Avengers film. It's a great threat for them to deal with. But it's a lot for Joss Whedon to navigate, and he does it really well for the most part. It's not all the way there.
No, it's not. But it was by far the most ambitious project, arguably outside of Iron Man, that Marvel had attempted to this point. You know, we hadn't really gotten any other big team up style movies, not just in the MCU, just with movies. Like that wasn't
in
really
cinema.
It's not really a thing to this point. Reminder to everyone that's watching, this movie was made in 2012, released in 2012, so a while ago for some of us. But yeah, I mean, I think it really played well off of pre-existing relationships, you know, between Tony and Natasha, sort of taking a little bit of a backseat. Thor and Barton, you know, all of those relationships didn't really come to the forefront because there's familiarity. But then you have Thor, Cap, and Iron Man all interacting, the big three all interacting for the first time. And what do we get?
Aliens, androids, and
really
wizards.
Awesome fight. We get a really cool fight scene.
That scene in the forest is so cool because we've rooted for all of these guys for, in Tony Stark's case, multiple movies, in Stephen Thor's case, one movie. But we formed these emotional connections by now. And so to see them fighting each other, it's like, who am I going to root for here? How's it going to play out? Of course, we know they got to avenge, so they all signed contracts beyond that movie. So, but seeing the three of them have that conflict, it was nuanced in a way. I mean, it's this big fight in the woods, but it's a lot of nuance to, you know, whose side are you on?
Are you supposed to take a side, right?
Right. Well, asking whose side the characters are on too.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah.
Because like they've just captured Loki in Germany, right? Steve and Tony and Natasha captured Loki. That happened. They're on the Quinjet back to the helicarrier. Thor shows up. How's this gonna go? So yeah, that's That's one of my favorite scenes in the movie, if only for Tom Hiddleston's performance.
Yeah,
And
it's a great
Robert Downey
scene.
Jr.
Yeah. No,
Doth mother know you weareth her drapes?
And it starts even before then, right? You have Steve making his return to Germany for the first time since the war. You have
Which
the
he
old
mentions.
man. Yep, he does mention it. You have the old man in the crowd refusing to take a knee, to kneel down to Loki. And then you have Tony Stark coming in and breaking up this honestly really poignant moment with him hacking the PA speakers of the Quinjet.
Let's play some AC/DC up in here.
Like if that's not a great segue into the next scene, then I don't know what is. And then again, sort of in the same vein is when thunder and lightning starts to crackle when they're all flying back on the Quinjet. Loki is nervous, and Cap asks him whether he's afraid of a little thunder and lightning, and Loki responds, "I'm not overly fond of what comes next."
Yeah.
And that's amazing.
Yeah, the dialogue in this film is really strong.
Yeah.
And it's performed really well, especially by Hiddleston, especially by Robert Downey Jr. I just want to talk one more moment about that scene in Germany when Tony Stark shows up, because as you were saying, really poignant moment, Steve Rogers, this super soldier, catching the bad guy in the act, you know, as cliche as that sounds. But he's this soldier, Boy Scout, good guy. And then you get Iron Man showing up with a completely different brand of heroism. And that's the first time they interact. So you're already laying the groundwork for how their relationship is going to develop from the first moment when their approach to going after the same goal is taken from two different ways.
Yep. I mean, they, like Bruce Banner says, they were a ticking time bomb for a good portion of this movie. It was not a happy relationship. They did not like each other at all, as evidenced by this scene in the lab on the helicarrier. And then they're kind of forced together. And I wouldn't even say that they like each other at the end of the movie necessarily. It's just they had a job to do. They had to go up and fight aliens. Like, how crazy is that? Your first day on the job, you go fight aliens together with this guy that you just fought like twice.
Yeah, there's bigger fish, I think, is the message of the second and third act of this film, whether that's when Barton and his brainwashed crew attack the helicarrier, or when they have to avenge Coulson after his heart-wrenching death. Agents of Shield fans notwithstanding.
Screaming at us to stop talking about it.
Yeah, there's so much about the relationships between these characters that have to be covered in 2 hours, 23 minutes, or whatever the film is. And it's what we've been saying this whole time, is that you have to show these characters meeting, interacting, fighting together, and winning in a way that you can then parlay into the credit scene of Iron Man 3 or Captain America the Winter Soldier, or even Avengers Age of Ultron, Infinity War, and Endgame. So I think this film, it sows the seeds. Even though it is this first big team-up film, it sows the seeds of something so much bigger than the biggest movie there had been to that point. And I think that's where the film gets a lot of its strengths.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It left the right things to be desired in that way. I obviously want to see more, right? I've seen 6 movies up until through this movie. I want to see more of these characters. And the post-credit scene and sort of the end of this movie allows they allows the characters room to breathe, and it's fantastic.
Let's go get shawarma. Also, there's Thanos.
Yeah, like
Talk
casual
about
fans.
the biggest dichotomy in mid and post credit scenes.
Yeah, I mean,
is
you
we're gonna
have
get
you
shawarma,
have
there's
Thanos right
Thanos.
here, and then you have going to get shawarma up here in terms of importance. Like obviously,
That's definitely how it goes.
yeah, for sure. Let's finish up with some rankings and ratings. George, why don't you start?
Yeah, yeah. This is I said it with the Captain America First Avenger episode yesterday. This is my favorite project we've reviewed so far.
Yep.
In terms of the MCU and overall, it's the first time we see these characters together. It's always really, really cool. A lot of fun. So I will say it is 10th in the MCU. It falls right at the back end of my top 10. High praise for Joss Whedon. No, high praise for the actors, for the story, for the performances, for the script, and for my man Alan Silvestri. The first time we hear that Avengers theme, oh my god, just so great. And I'm gonna put it in the A- range. I'm going to give it a 90. I think that this film is the best we've seen of the MCU to this point, and I think that score reflects that.
Yeah. It absolutely is the best film to this point, hands down. It's honestly not even that close for me. Our rankings and ratings will be close. I have it at an 89 out of 100. It falls just below that A- range. I think there are projects that fit that that A- range, and this falls just short for reasons that we didn't quite touch on today. But it is also just outside my top 10 for that reason. This is a sneak peek for my top 10, but they will all be 90s and above. So it is number 11 on my list. It is definitely the best film, and significantly so, in the MCU. But there's better projects, better paced, better acted, all that good stuff. But anyways, that's going to do it for us tonight. This was the rewatch, night 6. We talked about the Avengers. Tomorrow, we're starting phase 2.
Phase 2, let's go.
See ya.